Welcome back to Primetime News, and a very special welcome to our viewers on TVJ International in the Cayman Islands, as well as online at onespotmedia.com. Now, up first this evening, the Financial Investigation Division, FID, says it will undertake a comprehensive analysis on the Integrity Commission's report. This 2 days after the tabling of the report in Parliament. The Integrity Commission recommended that FID, as well as the Tax Administration Jamaica, TVJ, probe aspects of the Prime Minister's statutory declarations. The FID says it received communication from the Integrity Commission today, and it says its analysis will determine if any specific area may be probed in keeping with its mandate. Now, to put into perspective for us all that's happening, we have our legal analyst, Dion Jackson-Miller, here to frame things a little better for us. So, Dion, I want you to start off by explaining to us what is illicit enrichment. We hear that term quite a bit in this discussion, but what does that all mean?
Well, let me start with using the definition that's in the Corruption Prevention Act, and then I'll break it down for you, and we could bring up the first slide. So what Section 14(5) of the Corruption Prevention Act says is where a public servant owns assets which are disproportionate to his or her lawful earnings, and upon being requested by the Commission or any other person who is authorized to investigate an allegation of corruption, if you're asked to provide an explanation as to how you came by those assets, and you fail to do so, or you give an explanation which is not satisfactory, then you can be liable for prosecution. And let me just explain that. So say you're a public servant, you're earning $1.5 million a year, and the commissioners see you driving some top-end luxury vehicle. They're going to say, hold on, how you get the money to buy that? You need to have an explanation. You might say, well, I have a fairy godmother who owns a hotel on the North Coast. She gifted it to me for my 25th birthday, and here are the papers. That might be regarded as a satisfactory explanation. If you don't have an explanation, or if they think that makes sense, then you could be liable for prosecution. And just to say that this legislation, this type of legislation in some countries is called unexplained wealth legislation. The idea behind it is that in many cases, if public servants are, for instance, taking bribes, it's hard to catch them. So
this would be a way to track what's coming into their coffers and figure out where it's coming from.
What they look at is the end result. What do you have? You have a big house in a Cherry Gardens, but your salary doesn't seem to support that. And what it then does now is make it easier for the prosecutors, because to a certain extent now the burden is now on you. Instead of the prosecution having to prove that you got that house illegally, you have to prove that you got it legally.
Right. So with that in mind, let's zoom into what's happening here. What was the issue with Mr. Holness's declaration?
So what we were told in the Corruption Prevention Act was that the commissioners referred the statutory declaration of the Prime Minister to the Director of Investigations. What we're told is that after an examination of the declaration by the Director of Information and Complaints, the matter was referred to the Director of Investigations to find out, and let me bring that up because I like to use the words in the report, if Mr. Holness owned assets that were disproportionate to his lawful earnings, and so if so, whether this could be sufficiently explained, which is what we were talking about. Right. We're looking at what you have. Can it be explained based on your income?
Right. So with that then, could you outline a little bit more about what they found as it relates to, that declaration?
Well, the report is 171 pages.
And we're still coming through, lots to go through.
And I know we keep saying that, but it's just to emphasize for our viewers how complex the situation is. We can tell you, though, that the director said in the report, and we have that on the slide as well, that he found no unexplained growth in Mr. Holness and the company, that is his holding company's net worth for the year 2021. But for 2022, he did find unexplained growth in net worth of about $1.9 million, which raises a question for them as to how do you explain that. The issue as well, though, is that he said he was unable to come to a conclusion as to whether there was illicit enrichment, because he said he didn't have access to Mr. Holness's personal expenses, and this is why the matter was referred to the FID, Financial Investigations Division.
Right, and that's lots more development still there to go, because now the question is, there are some questions being raised about why the FID didn't get involved before the conclusion of the report and all of those things.
Well, I can tell you, I actually asked that question of the Integrity Commission. What I was told is that they did in fact bring in the FID at a very early stage, but then it was decided to wait until they had completed their investigation to send the report on to them.
Which brings us to this point.
And where we were and your lead story.
Definitely. So we're going to continue coming through the report. Lots more to bring to you. And we thank you so much, Dion Jackson, our legal analyst. Janella?
Javon.